Hey guys, Jacqueline Bertel here from Legally Vegas. I'm so excited to bring to you this new episode of Legally Vegas where we talk all things and answer your burning questions about why are there so many lawyer billboards in Las Vegas? Why are car insurance premiums so high in Las Vegas? And is it because of the lawyers? This episode is brought to you, of course, by Bighorn Law, the best personal injury law firm in Nevada. I am sitting here with my law partner and business partner and dear friend, Kimball Jones. So Kimball, welcome to Legally Vegas podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite.
So I want to share just a little bit. Kimball and I have worked together since 2013, and it has been so cool to really watch you develop into the trial lawyer that you are today. And for those people that are listening that maybe don't know, Kimball has 3 9-figure verdicts. How many 8-figure verdicts do you have now?
I think 3, 4, something like that.
He's just not even sure. There's so many. So it's you are just this phenomenal trial lawyer, and people can see all of those verdicts and maybe think one thing about you, but what they don't realize is how humble you are. I often tell the story. Can I tell the story of the Honda Accord?
Sure, absolutely.
Kimball got one of the very best verdicts in Nevada history, maybe the best wrongful death.
Yeah, the largest for a single individual.
Verdict in all of Nevada, one of the largest in the country. And, we see lots of things about flashy trial lawyers, but my partner, Kimball Jones, went out and following that verdict, he got himself a new car. And I came into the office and I thought it was somebody parking in his parking spot. And I learned that actually, no, it was just Kimball's new car. So following the largest single event verdict in Nevada history, Kimball went out and bought a brand new Honda Accord. So that is my partner, Kimball Jones. Kimball, why don't you, how long have you been in Vegas? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, my background, I went to law school, graduated in 2008, and had decided from the law jobs that I took that I didn't want to practice law. I thought it was very boring. I worked for a kind of a corporate law firm with one company fighting against another about who owed them a certain amount of money. And I could not really get behind the work, and I was pretty miserable. And so I decided to go into finance. My degree was in economics before law, and I decided to go into banking, worked for JP Morgan Chase for a period of time.
That seems like less miserable.
Yeah, funnily enough, I actually liked the job okay. It was not my calling in life, but I liked the job okay. And I joined the military as a reservist, and then I liked that job a lot. And so I ended up taking active duty assignments and started working full time. And I got into counterintelligence, and I did that work for the Department of Defense for a while. And then our mutual, very good friend, Ryan Anderson, who brought us both into Bighorn Law, was a buddy of mine from law school, and he told me about what he was doing and ultimately convinced me to come to Vegas, just not based on him trying to be persuasive, but it just sounded like something I could really enjoy doing. And so I took the bar in 2013, and then, the rest is history, and you came on board just shortly after I did. And so it's been a fun ride. It's been really neat developing together and building this thing.
So what year do you then move to Vegas? Is it 2013?
Yeah, so I technically came and I worked for a solo practitioner attorney just as kind of a clerk while I was preparing for the bar in maybe November, December of 2012 a little bit. But I moved my family here literally January 1st, 2013. And that's when we started living here.
And so, one of the questions, like you've been here for what then, 13 years?
Yeah.
Like right around now, 13 years,
yeah.
14 years almost. And one question that I get asked all the time is, why are there so many lawyer billboards in Vegas? I'm sure that that's something you've noticed as well, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I thought there were just a ridiculous number of lawyer billboards here in Vegas. And then I went to California, and I found that actually the same phenomenon exists in California, maybe even more so. But there is a reality that we have an absurd number of lawyer billboards. People feel all sorts of different ways about them. I don't particularly love the inundation of the billboards either, but that's a reality of living in Vegas. They're all over the place.
They really are. And so, our firm, Bighorn Law, we've never done lawyer billboards. We've never owned a billboard, bought a billboard, put up a billboard, nothing. And you and I've talked about this. I don't think we have any plans to do that in the near future.
No, and we're not taking shots at anybody that does, but there are people that do it in a more classy way, I guess, and people that do it in a less classy way. And ultimately, that's not who we want to be. That's not who we're trying to be. And so we've just decided to go a different way.
There was a report that came out recently about how Nevada insurance premiums were going up, and that Nevadans we pay the highest insurance rates, car insurance rates out of any state in the country. And when I was reading through just some of the comments on Twitter, now X, about that happening, a lot of the comments were about the lawyers. So one of the things I've spent a lot of time thinking about, is that one of the reasons why our car insurance rates are so high? And is it because of the lawyers? And obviously, you and I in this profession, we have probably a lot of opinions individually and about the way that we feel about that. But what do you think? What's your gut reaction to that?
Well, it's funny because you think, common sense, logically, it seems obvious. All these billboards, insurance rates are high. There must be some correlation between the two. And so I think the typical person, when they look at that, they think, oh, that's probably the case. And even more than that, it's a beautiful insurance narrative, right? For the insurance to say, oh, look at all these billboards. And so, these lawyers are the reason that our rates are high. That's the reason why we need to go to the Nevada Insurance Commissioner and say, hey, we need to have higher rates. So the question then is, when you dig a little deeper, is that really the cause? And as much as I don't necessarily love the billboards that we have and how many billboards we have, when you dig a little deeper, I think you and I found as we researched this that it seems to have maybe no impact, but certainly almost no impact if there's any impact at all. We happen to be in a city that has some major advantages for the folks living here. And among those advantages, there are some real disadvantages if you're trying to talk about getting low-priced auto insurance because of some of the same advantages, right?
You're somebody who's had these great verdicts, right? These huge verdicts. And one thing I heard recently that another attorney in town said is he said that every time that you see one of those massive verdicts, that keep in mind that there would have been an offer before that, an offer to settle to the insurance company before that for a lot less. And so part of me wonders, is there really a correlation between all the lawyer billboards, the insurance rates being high, and these big verdicts? And so, you're somebody that has big verdicts, yes, but one thing that I think it's important that we distinguish too, some of your verdicts are not just against maybe another driver who hurt a client of ours in a crash, but often at times against insurance companies directly. And so do you think that there's any correlation then between these rising insurance rates and these big verdicts?
I think it's very interesting because the insurance companies, we've discussed, once upon a time, insurance companies, they really seemed to be in the business of trying to help people out when bad things happen to them, right? And I think that anyone who's dealt with their insurance company, as much as they had positive feelings about their insurance company before something bad happened, very few people come out of that exchange these days, and in the last 10 years, frankly, feeling like their insurance company was actually there to help them. Mostly people come out of those exchanges feeling like their insurance company was looking for any angle to underpay on the claim, on what was owed. And that is not a random phenomenon. It's because of the structure that the insurance companies have gone with to literally take advantage of people when they make a claim. Now, something, as you mentioned, that's exactly right. And the three largest verdicts that we've had in the history of our firm, all three of them deal with insurance bad faith. And so these aren't going after, the neighbor that caused a car crash. Right. This is where the insurance company specifically had a duty to protect somebody and then basically tried to shirk their duty. They cheated. And so,
can you give us are you able to share with us a specific example?
Yeah, for sure. So, the largest verdict we had last year was $114 million. And the case was Kuhn versus USAA. And in that case, Timothy Kuhn had an insurance policy with USAA for 17 years with him and his family.
Meaning he's paying on it every month or every year for 17 years.
That's exactly right. And then, he's paying extra for something called underinsured motorist protection. Sometimes people get the minimum insurance. He was paying extra in the event that somebody hit him or someone in his family and hurt them, and that person didn't have enough insurance for the harm they caused. his own insurance would kick in and make up some of the difference. And so Tim is involved in a major crash. He suffers a brain injury. It's pretty significant. It's causing him a real impact to his life. And he asks USAA to step up. And then USAA, instead of stepping up, they give him this lowball offer that is literally less than his medical bills. And they actually initiate litigation against him to try to dispute the value of the harm that he suffered. And so that was the case. And we get into that case, and our intention is entirely to just try to get USA to do the right thing finally and pay the policy. And what they owed in this case was a $250,000 policy for a man who has a traumatic brain injury that has seriously impacted his life and will for the rest of his life. Well, USA refuses to do it. And we offer to settle for the policy limits, the $250,000, not only before the case was in litigation, but again during litigation. We offered again so that we could try to resolve the case for Tim, and that's what Tim wanted. But USA refused. And so we literally went through, our poor client gets dragged through years of litigation, and we finally get to trial in 2025. And we end up getting a $114 million verdict in the case, $100 million as punitive damages against USAA to punish them for the bad faith. And as you can imagine, if we didn't have verdicts like that for this kind of egregious behavior, when would they ever pay? Imagine think of all the folks who are getting the exact same treatment, but then nothing bad happens to the insurance company after putting someone through that for years. Does the insurance company ever learn? So the verdict obviously is very powerful, but this only resulted because USAA refused to even pay their policy that they clearly owed.
And so in other words, they could have resolved it for way less at some point in time. So the fact that there's this large verdict down the road, which you and I are sitting here today. We know, but we'll share, they still haven't, obviously that verdict hasn't been paid, right? There's an appeal, there's all sorts of other issues. And so USAA hasn't come out of pocket for any of that money. And so USAA, I believe, is one of them that's also raised insurance rates in Nevada. And so it's obviously unrelated to that.
They all have. And it's what happens is these insurance companies in Nevada, well, let's walk through a little bit about the economics, right, of how insurance works. So you always, in the world of economics, right, and this is my undergrad degree, so I really enjoyed economics. I taught as the fill-in professor during my last year in college. And so I taught a lot of these economics courses myself, and I just really enjoy the field. In economics, there's a concept when you have a profit, that if you're in an industry that has high profit, if there's legitimate and actual competition, if there is perfect competition, profits always go to zero. Okay? Because there's always someone willing to step in to do it a little bit cheaper, all the way down until no one's actually making extra money. They're making enough to run their business, but they're not making extra. That's in the world of perfect competition. Okay? Now, nobody wants to be in a world of perfect competition if you're running a business. You want to be in somewhere where you have some margin. But you've seen it in the airlines. All these airline companies, they reduce down to zero because they're first making a lot of money, and then over time it goes down. Southwest Airlines comes in with a different model where they're able to make a big profit margin for a period of time. But then what happens? JetBlue comes in, Spirit comes in, and they follow the Southwest model because there's profits to be made. And now they all reduce down to close to zero, not actually to zero in their case, but close. Insurance has been around a heck of a lot longer than any of these airline companies. But look at what insurance has done. They're making record profits year after year after year after year. So how is this possible? Well, it's only possible because we're not anywhere near perfect competition in the world of insurance. So how are they manipulating the market so that they don't have perfect competition in an industry that should be very easy for others to join? And it should be an industry that should reduce down to close to zero very quickly, but yet it doesn't. It's record profits year after year. The reason why is because basically two factors. Number one, it is mandatory. You don't have an option of buying insurance or not. And so everyone is forced to buy insurance, no matter how badly insurance companies treat people.
Right.
And number two, there's market controls. And so they have a limited number of people that can get in. They have to get approved by the insurance commission within a state. And so you have this group of 7 or 8 insurance companies in the state of Nevada. That's it. And they're providing insurance for everybody. And then they go to the insurance commissioner and they say, we need to make more money. The numbers are getting too tight. We're going to threaten to leave the state. And if they can bully or scare, or maybe the insurance commissioner thinks he's going to get a really nice job with one of these big companies after he leaves his position, then all of a sudden they get an agreement to raise rates. So the actual cost of insurance has virtually nothing to do with the prices. In a world of perfect competition, or even real competition, it would. But how it works now, it's closer to the OPEC of the 1970s, where you have a group of oil companies who could sell oil in a real competitive market for a very reasonable rate, but instead, together they collude and they raise the rates. Now, in the case of OPEC, they of course did it in meetings together where they agreed to do this. Today's insurance companies, they don't have to. They collusively can just talk to the insurance commissioner, not even talk to each other. And they know if I don't lower rates, neither will you. And they all stand to gain. And there's only like 7 of them. And so that's what happens more often than not.
So all these companies have now come together. They go to the Nevada Insurance Commissioner and they say, hey, I think they've each individually gone and said, we're going to raise our rates by X percentage. One thing that always really strikes me when I look at an insurance company, for example, we knew on Coon that USAA wasn't paying for all those years. And one thing that's remarkable is during all of those years, USAA is reporting their revenue and how much money USAA is making. And it's always shocking to me when I think about a person like our client, Mr. Coon, who over and over and over again paid that insurance premium the day that he needed it the most. They just fail to pay or make an offer that is so egregiously low that it's not something that could ever be accepted. And yet at the same time, these are companies that are recording record profits. I mean, right before we started this, I just did like a quick Google. We don't quite have everybody's 2025 numbers yet, but we know from 2024 what they were making. And their revenue is in the billions with a B. And I have a hard time reconciling, the reason that they're making that money is because they're obviously collecting it. People are purchasing those policies. And then the reason that they're holding and retaining that is because they're obviously not paying claims. And you see that over and over again. One of the things also that really stood out to me in particular, and I'm thinking about Progressive, is in addition to really poor claims handling and a failure to pay claims, you have companies like Progressive that have these set of core values. Now, we have core values at our firm, and they're things like working hard, hard work and having grit and having heart. And Progressive, this insurance company that does a lot of business in the state of Nevada, they have core values like profit. And what do you know about that? You've sued Progressive as an insurance company for bad faith. And so tell me what you learned about that.
Yeah, we had a major case against them also in 2024. And, I'll tell you one thing, it has gotten to the point that I feel like the insurance companies, those that operate in Nevada, are all about the same. The insurance companies, they all kind of have the same structure where they take advantage of people. And I don't, frankly, I think Progressive, in one way, I almost, the boldness of them to put that up there out front.
It's on their website. You can go to the progressive.com and see their core values, and it's profit.
Right. But I shrug my shoulders and I think to myself, well, at least they're not lying about it.
That's true. At least they're not hiding it.
We know the other folks, that it is their core value.
True.
But
they're not telling us.
Right.
Exactly. Allstate, you're in good hands. No, it's actually the core value is not in good hands. It's just profit.
Right. The famous book written about Allstate, from good hands to boxing gloves, right? That is literally written about Allstate and how internally, with intentionality, they put on this certain persona, but then they internally made decisions to really not pay claims even when they were clearly owed, sort of thing. So there's a good book all about that. So
in this industry that we're in, on the trial lawyer side, when I look at these insurance companies, it puts people in a really vulnerable position because they oftentimes, when we meet our clients, they have done everything that they're supposed to. and they have now are at risk, if they have not already, of losing everything. And it's not their fault that they're in that position. And so this idea that the insurance company that's supposed to really take care of them, an industry that we are all required to use, that we have to use if we own a car, operate a car, will then prioritize instead of their own recovery and their own well-being of this individual who's paid those premiums for all those years, instead prioritizes profit. For me personally, when I look around at all of these lawyer billboards, I don't view it as the insurance rates are a cause of that, those billboard lawyers. Instead, the billboard lawyers, the trial lawyers, the verdicts, they're a necessary result from bad behavior by insurance companies for decades now. I don't know if you feel the same way, but to me, I feel like we're the only ones that are really standing in between these really bad corporations, or these corporations that make really poor decisions when it comes to the well-being of individuals and our clients.
Yeah. I definitely feel that way. In economics, there's a term called externalities, and it means that, maybe a company is producing steel, but they have a smokestack that they're polluting the air, right?
Mm.
In economics, it says if you want to have a truly fair economic system, that company needs to pay for the harm that it's doing to everybody else by producing. They should make all the profits, they should make the gains that they make, but they need to pay back for their externalities, right? They shouldn't get the advantage of polluting the world as part of this. And we have similar things, right? We have Uber, who has produced this really amazing product in our society. But at the same time, there's some downsides, right? We've had the Uber rape victims and things that have been a far too common thing. Well, of course, they need to take responsibility for the externalities that they're causing society. And we find that too often these companies, they enjoy the benefits of doing really genuinely great things, but then they don't want to pay for the consequences of the harm that they're causing, right?
Right.
And so we see that with insurance as well. And that's who we deal with an awful lot. We deal with insurance companies that do not want to actually pay what is owed, even though they're getting the benefits of being able to get in with a state and have insurance that people are mandatorily have to pay for. And so we see that a lot.
So we talked about all these huge verdicts. Let's just talk about the ones that you had in the last 12 months. So we know that you had the Kuhn verdict. We were in trial on the Cooper case. Now I know, and I think you know, and if you're comfortable talking about it, none of those have paid. And so I think we can safely say, sitting here, that those verdicts that you see and that get reported, the Kuhn verdict made the front page of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. It made national news. Those verdicts are not the reason why insurance premiums go up, because we know, sitting here, nobody's actually paid anything on those verdicts. They're all up on appeal.
Right. And I'd say it even goes more than that. So yes, it's definitely the case that most of those cases did not pay. Hopefully they do pay, but even still, that's not what makes insurance go up. And to give you a perfect case study example of this, all you have to do is look at states around the country that have put caps on damages. States around the country that have put caps on damages, which impact verdicts, impact what insurance companies pay, you would say, oh my goodness, if all of a sudden there are caps on damages, then insurance rates must have gone down, right?
That's what you would think would happen, but...
Well, if the narrative is true,
right,
then it necessarily must happen, except it never has. Not once, not a single time. And we have personal experience from that in Nevada, where they put caps on medical malpractice cases. And the promise was that doctors were going to pay less for insurance.
Right.
And so instead of when a doctor kills someone through negligence, has to pay the full and fair value of the harm that they've caused to this family, that the insurance company would be on the hook for the harm caused. Instead, what have we seen? It gets reduced down to a cap of $350,000 for completely destroying someone's life, the life of their family. And of course, no reasonable person would value it at such a low figure. But what was the result of that cap? Insurance rates went up, not down.
Yeah,
yes.
They went up anyway.
And the reason why is because the reality of those payment on claims is such a tiny thing in the grand scheme of insurance, where they're making most of their money through investments, where they're running with such big numbers and so many claims, that in reality, it's a blip on the radar, and they are not being impacted in any significant way by that. So where we do see that big verdicts can matter, the only place it impacts things, it doesn't impact the price of insurance. And we know that because we can see case study after case study where it does not impact the price of insurance. But what it does do, so it's funny because even though it feels like common sense, it's actually just not true based on the data and based on the studies. What we do see that it does is individually, if you are a law firm that gets these kind of results, the insurance companies start being more fair to your other clients. That is the biggest impact that I think we've seen, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kimball, you're on the trial side and I handle on the pre-lit side. So cases that are all pre-litigation, no complaints been filed. We're talking just insurance claims. And you're 100% right. As soon as you guys just knock it out of the park or get a big verdict or anything, or even like are threatening to go to trial, we do see on our side a lot of our claims cases settling, in particular with those individual insurance companies. And it's been really cool to see for our clients. And these are clients who are obviously not the ones having to have their case go all the way to trial. They're clients that are just benefiting from the work that we're doing, yes, on their case, but also the reputation of the firm, that we're known as a firm that goes all the way to trial and gets these big verdicts. So Florida had a ton of tort reform. They capped all sorts of stuff. They had all sorts of limitations in place. And there was this case study, right? The way that it was pitched to Floridians was, this is going to make your insurance premiums go lower. And so we know now that has actually not happened at all. And I don't know if you can shed any light on that.
Yeah, but the insurance companies, their profits went sky high, right?
They
charged the same and more. And now their risk is lower.
Right.
And so that's how they operate, because their actual price has nothing to do with the claims that are being made or the claims being paid. Their margins for profit are too big. It doesn't actually enter into their economic calculus. And that's the reality of Florida. I think it's interesting, if it were the case that large verdicts were the reason for large insurance prices, then you would expect the states with the highest verdicts to have higher insurance prices.
Right.
But that's just not true. And so there are higher verdicts in Texas, for example, significantly higher. There are significantly higher verdicts in California. And yet California and Texas are quite a bit cheaper. On the other hand, Florida has insurance that's nearly as high as Nevada's, with a bunch of tort reform on areas that Nevada doesn't. And of course, their prices are still high. So these dynamics end up not being true. Now, I will say there are some things in Nevada that would predictably make Nevada a riskier place, particularly Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to ask. Like, if it's not the lawyers, which I know we get a bad rap whenever there's anything about insurance, I'm always going to read about the lawyers and us being at fault. But if it's not the lawyers, if it's not the verdicts, if it's not the billboards, then what is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of factors in Nevada, or in Las Vegas in particular. So first of all, Las Vegas is one of the biggest tourist cities in the world. So there may be 2 million people living in the Las Vegas area, the complete area, yet there might be 3 million people here at any given time or more. Right. And so there's a lot of people here that are, first of all, even if they're doing everything right, but they're driving, that's a lot of people that are unfamiliar with the roadways, right?
Especially when we're doing things like construction. And we're not just talking about people from out of state, we're talking about people from out of the country.
Right.
Because Nevada doesn't require an international driver's license. You can come with your driver's license from any country, zero experience on how to drive a vehicle in the United States or on our roads in the United States, come to Las Vegas, get off your plane, take a shuttle to get a rental car, and have your very own rental car to drive around Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's very, very easy. And then that gets compounded because Las Vegas has one of the highest rates in the world for drunk driving, for intoxicated driving. And there's a number of factors that go into this, right? We have marijuana, which is legal and easy to obtain. But more than that, I think, is something called that we cannot sue for dram shop violations. And dram shop is a legal term for a bar or a casino or a restaurant over serving a customer with too much alcohol. They can see that this person is clearly drunk, and they keep serving them alcohol. Now, in almost every state in the country, if a company does that, the company is generally on the hook for that negligence for the harm that is caused.
So in other words, if somebody has too much to drink at an Applebee's, goes out and gets in their car and kills somebody, that Applebee's is also going to be on the hook potentially for over-serving and letting them get in their vehicle.
Exactly right. And so a company like Applebee's, if you're in Arizona and the server at Applebee's sees this guy is drunk, he is going to cut the person off and not give them more booze. And that is going to be in his training. And he is going to talk to his manager so they can make sure to get this person a taxi or Uber or Lyft home.
Right.
That is going to be standard operating procedure. And I can tell you, I personally was a server working in a casino in Arizona.
Okay.
And that's exactly what my training was. The moment I saw someone might start getting a little bit tipsy, they were cut off and we started to arrange safe travel to wherever they needed to go.
I mean, would you actually like confront the person and say, how are you getting home? And no, you are absolutely not driving. I mean, that's part of the training?
Yes.
I've been in Vegas a long time, so this is new to me.
In terms of taking over the control of the person, I wouldn't, cuff him or grab him, but I would cut him off. I would tell him why, and I would affirmatively make steps to get him a ride. Now, a person can refuse the taxi and walk out anyway and things like that. But that would
limit your liability.
Exactly. I at least
tried.
Had to try.
Right.
Because otherwise we have now put a dangerous person out there. And we know this happens all the time. Every bar, every restaurant, every casino knows that this is a real risk. And here's how much they know it's a risk. This is testable. So if a person is at 0.08 alcohol in their blood, they are 3 times more likely to get in a crash. They're 3 times more likely to kill somebody as a result. Okay. But if a person is 0.16, 0.17, meaning double the legal limit, that person is not twice as likely. It's not 6 times likely. It is 50 times as likely to kill somebody on the road. That's a big deal. And Las Vegas has a huge problem with DUIs. I don't know if it's the majority, but I think it is the majority of the deaths on our roadways are from intoxicated drivers.
Right.
Now, why does Vegas have such a problem with it? Well, of course, people come here to have a good time. Vegas, right? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? But in addition to that, Vegas has a very strict law that you cannot sue the server of alcohol, the casino, the bar, the restaurant, even if they overserve someone. Knowingly or negligently, you can't do anything about it.
So if the casino knows that they're completely insulated from any liability, I mean, what interest would they have at all in cutting somebody off? They're obviously collecting payment for every time that person orders a drink. There's no risk to them. If that person over consumes and then walks out the door, they can never legally be sued.
Right.
So what's to even stop them from serving?
People do things based on incentives, right? Insurance companies cheat people that are making claims if they can get away with it, if they can make money from doing it, right? So we know that's why they do it. If they know they're going to be punished because somebody's going to come after them and get them with a big verdict because of it, they are less likely to do that. The same thing with these bars, restaurants, casinos. If the natural consequence of negligent behavior is not there, meaning you can't be held responsible for doing bad things, then why are they going to do the right thing if there's a profit to be made by doing the wrong thing? Now, I'm sure there's varying degrees of responsible citizens in these companies and irresponsible citizens. But unfortunately, we have seen the net result, which is that we have a lot of drunk driving and a lot of injuries, and frequently not by people who even live in Las Vegas, by victims, and also by people who do live in Las Vegas, right? And so it's an unfortunate scenario that frankly does make Las Vegas truly more dangerous to drive in than I think most cities. And I think that's the biggest reason why, or one of the biggest reasons why.
I mean, the problem also without having dram shop laws here, and this ability to sue a server or a casino or a restaurant is that if somebody is hurt on the roads and they need to make a claim or to go after somebody, then the only remedy is the person that hit them. They can't go after who served them, who they purchased from, who let them walk out the door knowing that they were absolutely trashed. None of that's on the table. And so then the only person that you can go after is the individual that hit them and that insurance policy.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so in other words, like the casinos, the restaurants, the bars, they're not offsetting the cost of this loss. They're not stepping in, and it completely eliminates them. But also promotes kind of bad behavior, right? They're probably over-serving. I mean, we know that they are because we see the accidents all the time. And I mean, that's a disservice. Do you ever think that'll change in Vegas?
I don't know. Within the last 10 years, there was a tragic case of these young men below the underage that were served to clear intoxication. They had to be walked out, and security literally walked them out of a casino to their car in the parking lot, put them in their car in the parking lot. These intoxicated men then drove away and killed a family within 15 minutes. And that case went up to the Nevada Supreme Court, and it found that the casino was not liable for the overserving. And so it's for better or often worse, right? That is something that unfortunately, because there has been a prohibition on holding the negligent party responsible in this particular scenario, it creates this problem. Now, I will say that in Las Vegas, unlike any other city in the world, this problem is multiplied tenfold because of the attraction of Las Vegas and the tourists.
Right.
Because the reality is, you actually don't see the same phenomena in Reno, our next largest city, because no one goes to Reno. And, the people.
Sorry, Reno.
Yeah. I mean, it's relatively speaking,
Right.
Surely people do go to Reno. People go to Tahoe. There's beautiful things up there. But when you're talking about probably the number one city that people come to in the United States, being Las Vegas, the only cities that compare might be, New York, LA, just very, very few cities that bring in this kind of tourism. Las Vegas has a unique combination. And so that issue with the dram shop problem and not being able to hold the responsible parties responsible is something that has caused the risk of driving in Las Vegas, if you're no matter what, to be a bit higher.
Nevada is, and people maybe don't realize this, but Nevada is one of the heaviest lobbied states in our state legislature. And I read once that for every one assembly or a state senator or state assembly member, that we have 19 lobbyists for every one.
Wow.
It's a crazy number. And so a lot of those lobbyists, they're in different industries, right? Like even legally, right? The Nevada Justice Association has obviously a lobbying arm of that. But the bigger picture on the lobbying, there are so many that are on behalf of the casino industry. And I am very pessimistic that we'll ever see a change legally, where the dram shop stuff will end, and that we would be able to pursue these claims against the casinos and maybe garner some responsibility there. I don't see that happening in my career. I think that it would have to be a legislative change, and just with the way that the lobbying industry is in Nevada and how heavily lobbied our legislature is, in particular by the casino industry, I just don't see it happening.
I agree. I think it's very unlikely. That change in particular, I think, is very unlikely. And I also think that given that it likely will not change, I do not see the insurance rates changing much. Moreover, the insurance rates in Nevada largely, again, come down to the lobbying efforts of the insurance companies themselves with the insurance commission.
Yeah.
And so their rates, they can't actually demonstrate that they're dealing with a profit problem because they're making an awful lot of money well above what they pay out. The real issue, as it always is they want to charge higher rates because they're in an insulated group where they know that they can just simply make more because someone has to pay it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, when is your do you have a jury trial set on like a bad faith case against an insurance company? Do you have anything coming up this year?
Maybe near the end of the year would be the next one that I have that is coming up and likely to go to trial. Definitely next year. I think it'll be a few times, maybe one near the end of this year.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see what happens there. First and foremost, thanks so much for coming on here with me. We got this award in for you, I think when you were in your last trial. This is awarded to Kimball Jones for Litigator of the Year in 2025 from the American Institute of Trial Lawyers. And I'm really excited to hand this over to you. I want to just say congratulations. You have had this incredible work that you've done that has made incredible change for our clients. And it's not just the verdicts, but it's all of the impact that comes following those verdicts. We see it every day as far as the claims that we're handling for our clients that are completely unrelated to those clients who are being forced to go through trial. But the impact on really prosecuting these insurance companies for doing bad things and holding their feet to the fire and making sure that they're following the law. Just being in a position where you're making sure that happens, it has great impact on the rest of our clients. And our clients are our community here in Las Vegas. They are our neighbors. They are our friends. And so you are making a difference every day for the people here. And I just want to say thank you. And thanks for coming on here.
Thanks for having me on. And I appreciate the kind words.
And congratulations,
Thank you
Litigator
very
of the Year.
much.
Love it. So thanks everybody for joining me on this episode of Legally Vegas. Stay tuned for the next one.